The last thing we're going to cover this week are for loops and while loops. We did basic looping when we did block-based programming in Module 2, so now we're going to translate that to Python. So the first loop we're going to do is the while loop. So let's just make a quick little program that counts up to 10. So I start with my number, say my num is equal to 0. Now we're going to make the while loop. So we want while my num less than or equal to 10. Let's count 0 to 10. We're going to print my num. And then if we did this right now, it would just print out 0 over and over and over again because it's not incrementing. So just like in the block-based programming, we need to increment our number in order for it to move on and to not create an infinite loop. So to do that, we can do two things. We can do my num is equal to my num plus 1, which will take the current value of my number and add 1 and then assign it back to my num. So if we ran it like that, it would work just fine. It would count 0 through 10. Or we can do some shorthand. So there's another operator that combines the addition operator and the assignment operator, and that is plus equals. So we can do my num plus equals 1. And that's just shorthand for what we had before. My num equals my num plus 1. So if we run it, you'll see it does the exact same thing. So that is the basic while loop in Python. You can also do a for loop. So we're going to do the same idea in the for loop. We're going to count 0 through 10. So to do that, we don't initialize a value first. It's all contained within the for loop. And the syntax for that is for my num in, and this is where it gets a little bit weird. So in the block, we had count starting at starting at some number to some number, incrementing in some number. In Python, we have a similar function. It's called range. So if we did for my num in range 0 to, this is where it gets tricky, to 11, incrementing by 1, we need that colon, and then print my num, then it will do the exact same thing. The tricky part here is this 11. So instead of going from range 0 to 10, where that 10 in the blocks was included, so it would actually get to the 10 and print it, this number is the upper bound. It will only count to the one before it, actually. So if we want to count 0 to 10, we actually need to put range 0 to 11 to get that. But there's a little bit of a shorthand that we can do for this specific case, where we're starting at 0, we're going to a number, and we're incrementing by 1. All we have to do is say range 11, and it does the same thing. So for my num in range 11. So what it's doing is it's going to my num, it's saying, okay, what number am I at? It's grabbing a 0, it prints that 0. Then it goes back to the for loop and it gets the next number in what's called that generator. So it generates the 1, it prints the 1, and then it goes back and it grabs the 2, and then it prints the 2, and so on and so forth. So this is one way to use a for loop. Next week, we're going to get really into lists much more deeply than we touched on with the block-based programming, and the true power of the for loop will become apparent then. But for now, that's it for while loops and for loops.